there's a lot of options for organizing your business data out there, from HubSpot to Asana to Monday.com. Like there's lots of different tools out there, but it's thinking about, okay, you're a small business, but where do you want to be in 5 years from now? And what kind of tool set is going to help scale with you as you start to grow? And as you start to grow, it's not going to create such a cost and overhead burden that it's going to slow you down.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I feel like there is definitely an energy between people in digital media and people who are musically inclined. Because I see a lot of that. And I think often those are the people that are best, the creative minds that can come to our world of digital marketing, innovation, AI, and create magic. And Paul Schmidt, I think that is exactly who you are. You're the VP of Marketing Innovation at SmartBug Media. And I'm really thrilled to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Annika. Looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's rewind a little bit, because you did start out as a music major and you still are a performing musician.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, looking back in early part of my career, I was just really gunning for being the drummer on stage. And that's really what I foresaw myself doing for my entire life. And though my career didn't pan out to be doing that, or at least where we are today, music still is a big part of my life. Creativity is a big part of my life. And early days of, before I got into marketing and what I do today was really, spent honing my craft and playing percussion, learning music, studying music. And I've been doing it my whole life. And now I'm really fortunate to be able to play with the local Littleton Symphony here, and, being able to perform and play music and practice music while also having a very creative, fulfilling role in marketing.
Yeah. And how did you make that transition to your next degree, deciding to pursue this other path in addition to music?
Well, there's so many overlaps when it comes to the arts and in marketing. And when you're learning how to be a great musician, it comes down to a lot of time in the practice room, day after day, of just really honing and practicing whatever instrument you're working on. And the transition came from, when you're developing art and you're building and you're creating music, there's so much hard work and effort that goes into it. And it's when you look at the ways that musicians can go, you can continue to perform music, but you can also create other really amazing things in life. And that's really how I transitioned from just performing music to doing something where it takes that creativity and it allows me to leverage it and use it across, it really as a part of a career, was going from saying, hey, as I'm playing music, though, there's ways that you can take this and apply that creativity to business. And I think that, I early in my career started out on the agency side of things. And as I got handed a handful of clients to start working with, you saw that there's this way that you can use that creativity with all of those clients. And so that was really how I started to transition it to it. And when I got into consulting, I was like, wow, this is almost you're learning, 5 different or 10 different kinds of business models, and you're able to leverage creativity in a lot of different ways. So that's kind of how early days of transitioning from music into marketing. And then from there, it's it's continued to grow. I continue to play music, but I am able to leverage creativity in all the work that I'm able to do today.
Yeah. So let's talk about your work today and your company.
Yeah, so the work I do today is overseeing the marketing function at SmartBug. SmartBug is a 200-person digital marketing shop, and we're one of HubSpot's top partners in helping implement CRM and we do full-scale integrations and migrations onto HubSpot. And so that's a big part of what we do, but we do full service work for helping clients with their marketing programs, sales programs. We help build customer service teams. We also do all of the creative work for a lot of our clients. clients. And so they bring us on, they help us, they really, that's what we're able to do today at SmartBug. And I really oversee the marketing side of things, help build pipeline. And another area that we'll talk more about this is on the AI side of things and really helping pioneer AI into a lot of the different processes that we're doing today at SmartBug.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that. I was reading some of your recent LinkedIn posts on that area and how limiting we can be sometimes in what we think of as AI use cases. But before we get into that, one thing that you shared with me before we jumped on is that a lot of times people think of growth as, oh, what new products can we add to our portfolio? What new SKUs or what something totally different that we can bring to the marketplace, rather than going deeper into the existing client base and seeing what have we not captured yet in our customer loyalty. So can you talk a little bit about that, how, and what you've seen in the market and how you've helped maybe redirect companies or help them see, wow, you have this amazing client base who's ripe for more interaction rather than going out and doing, a bigger spend to get a new acquisition.
Yeah, and I think this is sort of you see it's kind of pervasive within a lot of companies that they focus all of the calories from their sales team just on bringing in yet another logo into their portfolio. And I think you see it so often. And I think, especially over the last few years, where companies can't focus on growth at any cost, they really have to think about more efficient growth. And they have to think about what are the levers that we can pull today to be able to help us grow and also retain customers. And I think that's really where organizations are starting to allocate more capital towards customer marketing efforts. And that's really something that our team has done as well, is like we've really allocated a whole person on our team to just focus on customer client marketing initiatives, because it's like they're already paying you. You're already delivering value to them. It's like there's so many opportunities to continue to add even more value to those existing clients. And like that's really what a lot of companies are shifting. Same with SmartBug. And by doing that, it's like you're able to, when you look at customer marketing, what value it's able to provide, you're going deeper and broader across that organization to just allow to be able to work with more folks on their team to be able to provide more value from your organization. And I think a lot of companies leave money on the table because they're just focusing all of their selling and marketing efforts on bringing yet another person to their portfolio. So I think if you're thinking about like a services organization's size of SmartBug, or even larger, like there's so much money leaving on the table if you're not giving marketing and sales love to your people you're already working with today.
Yeah. I think this is something we can't hammer home enough with clients, is the need to really look at that existing base, see how we can remarket, how we can better market and serve their needs before going out. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure that when you're looking at CRM technology, you're able to find those patterns to recognize, to see even that customer segmentation that you should be really focusing on.
Yeah, and that's a big part of what we help clients with, is we don't just like do campaign management and help like launch new marketing campaigns, is like we really help them get their data house in order. And I think that's a really important part for organizations is thinking about, like, if you want to be able to provide the maximum value to a client, like you have to have a complete picture of that client, and not just how they got to you, but like how you sold to them, what types of content they interacted with, what things they bought from you, what are the support tickets that they've had with you over time, or different inquiries or issues that they've had with you over time, and be able to have that full picture. And so that's a lot of what we help clients with, is like helping them get that all in one picture of their clients, so that they can really help them from many different angles, depending on like where the customer and their life cycle stage is at today.
Yeah. You said you had about 200 people on your team. Did SmartBug start as a remote first company? Was it in office, hybrid model? Because I noticed that that's part of, especially with 200 people, in this day and age, being a small to medium-sized business, it's not really practical to find all the right talent in one place, to pay for an office building. We've seen that big shift. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that aspect of your company and how you manage that.
Yeah, we started around 15 years ago, and we started as a remote organization. And over the years, we've acquired a few other agencies, and some of them, they have physical real estate. But for the most part, I would say like we were a remote first company to begin with. And we were remote first way before COVID when everybody became remote. And so we already had a lot of our processes baked out. So it was like by the time like when the pandemic hit, it was like we were already working this way with our clients. There wasn't a massive shift for us. There was a massive shift for our clients. They were the ones like trying to figure out how am I going to work remotely like this. So that was a big part of, our success in that time. And since then, like a lot of agencies have figured out, wow, well, maybe I don't need physical real estate in this city to be able to be very successful. And we've seen a lot of some of our competitors have shifted to be fully remote or hybrid at least and gone down that same path. But, we've had, in terms of like maintaining culture, we've had, programs consistent from back in our early days that we still have today that allows people to connect regardless of if they're sitting in Denver or New York or wherever they are today. And I think that's something that really helps us retain our employees and really create a great remote first culture.
Nice. Yeah. During the pandemic, I started a remote first company because that's what you do, right?
Right.
And it was great because there was something freeing about being able to find the right talent no matter where they lived and be able to reward them for that and still create that culture even though you're remote. So what are some of the things that you as an organization have done? Because I know that it's funny because there's still a struggle with a lot of companies on how do we make sure that we are creating a great company culture, even being remote first.
Yeah, and you see a lot of those companies too trying to force people to come back into the office, even though they say they're remote first. And it's I think that there's various programs. So some like we look at our company culture and we look at like there's a lot of programs that fit around your life or that happen. There's things that happen when you're not between the hours of 9 to 5 that we find is really important, and we try to invest in those types of things. And so some things that we do culture wise is like we encourage our team members to get together when they can. There are people that are in the same city together, and we fun get-togethers and like gatherings and things like that for when people are in the same town or when they travel through towns. And some of my longest lasting friends at SmartBug have been people that I've like gone through their town. We've had lunch together, and we've been able to spend like serious like in-person time together. And so we fund those types of programs that do encourage people to get together. But there are others as well. We encourage people to go and take different educational programs and things like that so they can continue to hone their skills and learn things outside of their working hours so they can get better at what they're doing. And we invest in educational things like that. And there's also like annual get-togethers that different teams do as well, and just bringing everybody together. And those are also things that we fund. And though we are a remote first company, we do think that like there's nothing like getting together with your team members or your clients or your partners, be able to foster those types of relationships. And that's something that we continue to invest in.
Yeah, wonderful. Speaking of getting people together, obviously that's what you want to see when you have a CRM. You want to make sure that you have a clear picture of all of your clients. But I think a lot of times people say, great, I put all this information in. And as you mentioned earlier, you don't know what to do with it. And today we're seeing, we see mad tech. Instead of having digital and advertising and marketing be two separate things, they have to work together as a full funnel strategy. So what are some of the things that you see that you have to course correct for your clients to make the best use out of a CRM or out of HubSpot?
I think what we see a lot of times when we bring in clients onto HubSpot is they try to bring all of this technical debt or technical baggage with them from previous systems that they're using. And they try to take the exact same process and just try to like dump it onto the new system. And when you think about like when you're migrating to a new system of record, think about that as an opportunity to be able to like rethink what your processes are today. And I think that's so true today especially when you think about all the advancements with AI and how fast that's moving and all the processes and all legacy processes that we've built up over time. Like, do we still need to have all these processes anymore? Can we skip 10 steps in the middle and still have the same quality and quantity of output? And so those are the types of things that it's one of the biggest missteps is like just trying to like drag over your old systems and dump it in HubSpot. And same with all your data, just export it from that system, put into this new one. And I think like we really try to like talk with our clients about we need to clean this up, because if you really want to be able to have that complete picture of your customer and you want to be able to leverage and get great quality AI out of this, like you need reliable data, accurate, up-to-date data, clean data. And so like that's the biggest thing that we try to focus on is like this is not just like a faster horse. This is like this is a car. This is a rocket ship that we're getting onto. So that's kind of like how we have to re-engineer, help them kind of reframe how they're thinking about things.
Yeah. Well, and when you're thinking about that reframing for your clients, obviously your company's been around a lot longer than we've been using the words generative AI and, throwing out these different terms, even though it existed before we all started using AI and, machine learning. What about your team? How did you have to make a transition with your team, or did you have to get everybody up to speed on what capabilities you had in this new world where everybody's talking about AI, to make that shift then to your customers and helping them understand?
I mean, I would still say it's a work in progress. I think that like with how quickly technology and AI are moving right now, like I think that you definitely have your early adopters and people that are really hungry for learning. And like myself, I just want to continue consuming and understand sort of like what's around the next corner. But there's also people they've done this certain thing a certain way for the last decade. And it's like this transformative technology is coming in and it's providing a new element that I think it's hard for the human brain to even kind of like comprehend what's going on sometimes. And so, we internally, we have several like AI committee groups that are working on solving specific problems. We also have company-wide Slack channels and discussions that are going on related to certain AI topics and how that affects our organization or their client, things like that. We have channels for like sharing prompts that are working really well for specific departments or specific job functions. And so that's kind of like internally what we do. And then we have like groups for building agentic AI. So like building specific applications powered by AI. So we have a lot of that stuff happening internally. And then to translate it to our clients, again, it's a similar sort of boat. Like our clients, we have some clients that are like very gung-ho and are trying to like learn as much as they can about it and integrate AI and be transformative like as quickly as they can with it. We have others that are kind of dabbling, and then we have others that are burying their head in the sand to some degree. And so it's kind of like you approach each one of them differently with, kind of based on their maturity level and showing them like, here's where you need to go to hit these specific goals that you have. So it's definitely, we work with a number of different kinds of clients that are in sort of like those different camps, and we have different playbooks to help them bring them on board based on their comfort level.
Yeah, I can imagine, but I can also imagine it can get frustrating to, know that clients aren't going to get as much out of their businesses unless they start putting their head up, learning, and at least taking baby steps to implement these new strategies and actually use AI as the tool it is.
Yeah, that's right. And some of them, like, they're not ready to move super quickly. So it's like in those types of cases, it's like, what are the most impactful use cases that are maybe not so jarring or not so, they make people feel like they're going to lose their jobs by implementing them, but helps them move a little bit quicker, helps them see early wins of that kind of stuff. So getting those quick wins in place is really useful to be able to then build the proof cases for why we need to do something even larger and more transformational. And I feel like that's the kind of play that gets your like stakeholders bought in, so then they can go try to sell it to the rest of their team. That's kind of like the approach that we often take.
Yeah. I noticed, so I was reading again your posts on LinkedIn, and one of them from about a week ago is talking about the use cases that clients are thinking of, like reducing support tickets and creating more content. And your approach and what you wrote, I thought was spot on. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about some of the ways that you're helping clients who are thinking about AI strategy, but they're thinking about these minor use cases versus other ways that they can really data mine and have AI help their businesses increase, exponentially.
Yeah, and what I was referencing on LinkedIn is that like so often we have clients come to us and the most common use cases are like, hey, we just want to use AI so we don't have to use humans as much to solve support tickets, or we want to use AI so we can fire our writers, or we want to use it to write content. And like these are like sort of obvious use cases with LLMs and AI, but I think it's important for every organization to start thinking about a potential future with a consumption-based pricing and where consumers are more looking for paying for outcomes rather than just like paying for the renting of a solution. And I think that's really what I try to talk with clients about is like thinking about your own pricing model today. What are the types of outcomes that your customer may be like that you can offer to your clients that's not charging them for what you sell to them today, but it's charging them for in smaller bits of the outcomes that you're able to provide to them. And so I think it's hard to think that way because like we're so ingrained in like selling whatever solution like we've been told to sell. And I think that it comes to getting product team together, marketing leadership together to think about like what is the future going to look like in a few years. It's hard to know, but we need to start thinking about if we're an agency, for example, it's like what are your clients going to be paying you for? Are they going to be paying you for closed deals? Are they going to be paying you for leads that you're generating? Or like are they going to be paying for meetings that you're helping them book? And I think those are the types of things that like every organization needs to be thinking about is like, the way that you sell your product today may not be in a subscription any longer or may not be in like a one-off thing anymore. It may be these like smaller bite-sized deliverables or outcomes that you're able to provide to them. So like it's hard for people to think that way. And that's why we're developing technologies that come up with these types of ideas for clients.
Nice. Yeah. And I'd say, obviously business operations isn't what people think of as the sexy part of doing business, but it's so fundamental. And if you don't have everything nailed in and you're not thinking forward, then you're not going to have a business in the future. But you mentioned that your organization doesn't just help people with that side, but you also do help create campaigns and you do so much more. Do you have in the hundreds and hundreds of clients that you've worked with, a couple of standout stories or cases that you would be willing to share about, clients that had that big aha moment or you saw them reach a ton of success or make a little tweak based on your recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple examples within that. I think like when we look at some of the ways that AI has been able to help us too, I'll give an example. So one of them was like we work with a lot of like senior living clients, and so this type of client, what some of their needs is based on really creating targeted and tailored content for different zip codes, different geographies, different price points. They're based on like what type of offering that they have, and so from just like campaign and content development, that's a big thing that we help our senior living clients get off the ground is because like, if you think about if you have let's say 25 communities within your portfolio inside your community, like how do you create something that's going to be useful for all of them? And it's like some of the stuff is going to have like themes that's going to resonate across the board to all of the 25 of those communities. But then there's nuance within the locale. Some people may not refer to it as a community. They may refer to it as some degouts. And so you have to be able to incorporate and leverage be able to use AI to be able to help you create and help you better understand those local identifiers. That's really helped. One way that we've helped clients think about it in a more modern way is like if you don't understand the nuance of that community, you sound really tone deaf when you go create content for your own website or your blog for that specific community. And so AI has really helped us been able to upskill our research within each one of those communities. So as our writers are developing content for that community, they're able to understand how do people what's really important to people that live in this specific area and be able to incorporate within that. And it's allowed us to scale that research exercise much more quickly than we would before. We would need to go into maybe even fly on site to interview the executive director at that specific community. And so this is something that's helped us move a lot more quickly and validate some of those types of pieces of research. So that would be one specific example that from just a campaign development perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. So senior living, what are some of the other, do you mostly work with service providers or do you have a huge client base that's in different verticals?
It's a pretty broad range of types of clients that we work with. I would say it's mostly B2B clients that we do work with. Senior living is not that B2B necessarily, but it's, we work with manufacturing organizations. We do a lot of integration type of work with those types of companies. We work with a lot of healthcare and age tech companies. So we have, with HubSpot specifically, they now have the functionality to bring in sensitive data. So you can incorporate and integrate integrate within with your EHR. So that's another like vertical where we're having a lot more clients coming on board now to HubSpot because they can pull in or like they can intake that data into HubSpot in a compliant way. So I would say manufacturing, healthcare, senior living. We do work with professional services. And then, we have a whole branch of SmartBug that we do also build like e-commerce websites for and do like stuff that's in Adobe, in other platforms as well. But I would say those are like some of the core platforms or core verticals that we work within.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that knowing that you have a CRM that is privacy compliant, right? Because we have all these concerns about just our data, but then we also have to think about the AI and how people are using it, making sure it's a closed system, a closed LLM system, so that when we're putting sensitive data in, it's not accessible. So it's really great to see that businesses are being proactive, because I think sometimes, depending on what country you're in or what state even, the rules are different. And so it can be hard to be compliant and make sure that you are safeguarding your clients.
Yeah, and within HubSpot too, I would just say that like if you're using some of the sensitive data features, so like if you're a hospital and you're pulling in, you're using HubSpot for patient intake, a lot of the AI features are just like turned off, and you can't even turn them on for and just from a privacy and security perspective. And so, which makes a lot of sense, because it's like you don't want this data just like feeding into like an LLM, on its own. So for these types of clients, the way that like your leverage AI is really, it has to be, and you may have to use third-party systems. You really have to look at ways that you can anonymize data. So it's like you're not putting patient data into LLMs, and you have to find other use cases. But it's a much more litigious area that like we don't even like get into, because it's just like if you want to use HubSpot for healthcare, then like you're not going to use much of the AI functionality. So it's sort of, you have to kind of know the rules and what's allowed.
Yeah. And where do you see, obviously AI is a big area, but where else do you see growth opportunities for your business and for other businesses, your client base in the future?
I think that areas for opportunity in the future, I think healthcare is an area where like there's, with a lot of the sensitive data functionality that we now have access to, I think that's a big part that like in the past, like hospitals, like really their only option was either to try to manage all this stuff in like their EHR, which is not really a CRM at all, or they had Salesforce. Like Salesforce was like their only option. And so like it was, when we look at like what the opportunity is now, there's so many like hospitals and healthcare organizations that are like, wow, I've got more than one option now. So like that's a big area for us, is like looking at especially like hospitals and healthcare groups that are maybe a little bit smaller. They don't have like an overly sophisticated CRM instance today, and it's something where they need something a little bit more intuitive and simple to use. And so like that's really where like the value that HubSpot's able to bring compared to a Salesforce. So that's one area. The other one is like similar sort of thing I'm talking about is with manufacturing organizations. Like, how do you manage the complex relationships that you have with manufacturing customers when they have very like customized types of like end products that they need, and like you can manage some of that within like an ERP, which a lot of them do for like inventory and like putting orders and things like that together. But again, it's not a CRM, and so like you need to have all of like your customer communications inside there, and you need like sort of this all-in-one system that everything feeds back into, so you have that complete picture of the customer. And so like those are two areas where we're really focusing on for those types of clients, helping them integrate their ERP with our CRM so they have that complete view. They can see all the orders of the customer, but they can also see all the conversations and all the things that the customer could be interested in. So those are two areas that are really continuing to be ripe for growth, that we're really going after these days.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say in this climate, we saw a lot of supply chain disruptions during the pandemic, and we see a lot of things going back and forth about tariffs. With healthcare in America, we see the same thing there are a lot of unknowns. So how do you as an organization continue to show value, grow your business, when some of these categories that are huge growth opportunities are also areas that, may have some volatility?
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely some clients and prospects that we talk with that they're making very calculated and slow decisions, just because it's like they don't know what the administration is going to say next week, and they're quick to pull back on things just because like they feel like, hey, like my thing's going to collapse, the economy's going to collapse and it's so quickly. And so we have to I think what we do is we help ensure that the client has a consistent, good system of record to help instill that trust for our clients. And that's really what we help do is we help them build these like systems of record, which then they know that like all of their business data is in there. It's reliable. It's consolidated. The data is easy to access. The tools are easy to use and your team is trained up on them. And, we put one foot in front of the other. And I think we just try to like help our clients like kind of think through how these types of things that are happening in them from a macroeconomic perspective could impact their marketing and sales programs. And that's really like how we try to like guide them and show them like what they should be building for. And regardless of like what tariffs are going to get implemented next week, like these systems, they're going to need these systems regardless of that. And so like that's kind of like what we try to show them, that there's going to continue to be volatility, but like you still need to get these building blocks in place for you to hit your growth goals over time.
Yeah, fantastic. I know that was like a little bit of a left field question for you. But the important thing is really honing in on, doesn't matter what's happening in the external world, you still have to have great systems and processes. You still have to know your customers. You still have to have the data to be able to see where your areas of opportunity and growth are, no matter what else is going on in the world. And so, Thank you. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, we've talked a lot about CRMs, things that people do wrong, why they're necessary. What is the one thing that people should look for when they're at that stage in their business where they're saying, oh gosh, okay, I actually have a business now. I have customers. I need to figure out what CRM I should be part of, that I should integrate into my business, and how to best use and set up that model.
Yeah. I think, we come from a couple different angles. Like there's certain types of, sometimes we're talking bring it back to senior living again. So for this type of example, like there are sort of like industry vertical CRM systems that are like, that's all they do is they just build like a CRM system specific to that business model. And I think like there are we hit certain junction points with clients where they're like, should I go down the route of buying, this industry-specific CRM, or I use something that's a little bit more a broad type of CRM, like a Salesforce or a HubSpot? And I think like when we're working with those types of organizations, it's like, where does your organization need to be in 5 years from now? Like, are you looking to scale from 20 to 50 communities? Are you looking to be, flat and consistent? Are you looking to sell off in a few years? Like, what's your overall goals? And I think like that's what we help them think through is like, is this just because you're looking at like an industry specific CRM, that does not mean that like this is going to be the best tool for your organization. And so we help them kind of think through the pros and cons of like what type of system is going to help with the longevity of their organization and their goals. So like that's a common thing that we hit is like clients, they're like, well, this CRM's not industry specific. It's not right for me. And it's like, well, that's not always true. And then I think on the other camp, then you have folks that are like just getting into like you were mentioning, like new businesses. And like they're managing things on spreadsheets, on notepads, on the whiteboard that's behind them. And so for them, it's like there's a lot of CRM systems out there, HubSpot being one that has like a free version of it that you can test out, at least get your data into like a database that's usable. And it's something that you can, you could get yourself out of a spreadsheet, get yourself off of a notepad and get them to a place where you have like centralized data for other people in your organization. And so those are the two things that we try to like guide organizations towards. In the latter right there, it's like there's a lot of options for organizing your business data out there, from HubSpot to Asana to Monday.com. Like there's lots of different tools out there, but it's thinking about, okay, you're a small business, but where do you want to be in 5 years from now? And what kind of like tool set is going to help scale with you as you start to grow? And as you start to grow, it's not going to like create such a cost and overhead burden that it's going to slow you down.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I know that we're going to have a link for Smart Take in the show notes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Smart Take is our monthly webinar that we put out for folks that are interested in HubSpot or that are HubSpot users that are trying to understand the newest features that have come out over the course of this last month. And the HubSpot product team, they push out like between 50 to 100 product updates every month. It's wild. And we have people that are like, how am I supposed to keep up with all of this? And so what we do is we just distill down the top 5 most impactful, most consequential types of updates. And we put those together for all of our clients and for our prospects that are just looking for like, what should I be paying attention to? There's too much going on here. And so that's really how we we put that on every month and share that out. And yeah, we're really just trying to create the number one monthly video series in the HubSpot ecosystem, which we're well on our way to doing.
Yeah, fantastic. And Paul, I always ask one last question. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto, just words that continue to inspire you to do what you do?
And I kind of hinted this earlier when we were talking about AI, but I think the quote of, if you ask people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And I think that this quote resonates so much with me these days when thinking about helping clients get onto new systems and new processes that are powered by AI, because so often you get the same sorts of stories of, hey, I'm trying to build this exact same process, but I want it 10x faster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, let's take a step back and think about like, hey, really, do we want to replicate the same process but make it 10x faster? Or do we want to be able to like rethink what this process looks like entirely to help you go 1,000 times faster? Or, thinking about from that lens. And so that's really the quote that I think about a lot these days is like, how do we rethink business? How do we rethink our processes and our teams today to help us hit our goals, help us move forward in our mission?
Yeah. Fantastic. So obviously we'll have the link to the SmartBug Media HubSpot product update vidcast, but then also to your website. Is there any last thing that you want to share with us today, Paul?
I think that, if coming from my background in the creativity and the arts is something that I think about a lot is just like continuing to push myself to continue learning. And I think that as we get into this sort of technological wave, hitting this another revolution that we're in, is like you have to continue to challenge yourself to use AI every single day. You have to continue learning and know that like the world is going to continue to evolve and move more quickly. And I always encourage people, my clients, my prospects, to continue learning, to continue to be hungry for knowledge. I think that's what makes life interesting and makes work interesting. And I think it's something that, it just makes everything much more fulfilling.
Awesome. Well, you're preaching to the choir here. I love learning about and using AI tools every day. There's always something to learn. And the value that you're offering and the different perspectives that you're offering, not with your creativity, your innovation, but also with your just product knowledge of HubSpot and the other products that you use for your clients is second to none. So, Paul, thank you so much for being here on Your Brand Amplified. And thank you to everybody who's watching this episode or listening to it on your favorite platform.
Thanks, Annika. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.